Hey guys, so here's your guys' homework on solving equations by completing the square, homework number 10. So I'm just gonna review the first three again and then do the rest, okay? So again, first step is to get this equal to 0. So we're gonna subtract both sides by 40. Now, once you set it equal to 0, the next step is, okay, you need to take the coefficient of x, which is this one, and half it and then square it. So 6 divided by 2 squared. 6 divided by 2 is 3 squared, and 3 squared is 9. So we have 9, and then we are going to subtract 9. Oh, sorry, add by 9 and then subtract by 9. Okay, now we are going to make that into a perfect square trinomial, and we are going to combine those two. So when you guys put this into perfect square trinomial, what two things multiply to 9, but when added together gives you 6. So it's this, right? And what you should recognize is that these two numbers should be the same. So we're going to get factors of x plus 3 squared. Negative 9 minus 40 is negative 49. And now we just solve for this. So add 49 to both sides. Square root both sides. Now remember, when you guys square root, you're going to get positive or negative of the right hand side. So it's going to be plus or minus square root of 49 is 7. Then we get two equations. X plus 3 is equal to 7, or x plus 3 is equal to negative 7. And then you guys just solve, so subtract 3 from both of them, and we get x is equal to 4, or x is equal to negative 10. Okay. Number 2. So first, subtract it by 12 to both sides. So then we get equals to 0. Now, you take the coefficient of the x term. You half it and then you square it. So 4 divided by 2 and you square it. 4 divided by 2 is 2 squared, and 2 squared is 4. Now that you guys have that 4, you're going to add that and subtract it from the equation. So x squared plus 4x plus 4 minus 4 minus 12 is equal to 0. Okay, so then you're going to make that into a perfect square trinomial, and you're going to combine those two. So again, what two things multiply to 4 and add together gives you 4. Now remember, these should be the same two numbers, right? Because it'll be a perfect square. So it's going to be 2 and 2. So x plus 2 squared. Negative 4 minus 12 is negative 16 equals 0. Now let's just solve for x. So add 16 to both sides. Get x plus 2 squared is equal to 16. Now we're going to square root both sides. Now remember, when you guys square root, you're going to get plus or minus that square root. Square root of 16 is 4. We get two equations. X plus 2 equals 4, or x plus 2 is equal to negative 4. Then you guys solve. And we get x is equal to 2, or x is equal to negative 6. Alright, bringing up the next couple. Okay, so 3 or 4. case 3, right? First step, set it equal to 0, so subtract 14 from both sides. Minus 14 is equal to 0. Now, the second step is you have to divide each term by the coefficient of x squared. You need to get this to be a coefficient of 1, and the only way you could do that is if you divide it by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1x squared. 12 divided by 2 is 6x. Negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. Now, you have to think, okay, there's the coefficient of the x term. I need to half it and then square it. So, half of 6 and then square it. So we're going to get 3 squared, which is 9. So that means we need to add 9 to this equation and subtract 9. Okay, so this is a perfect square trinomial, and that's going to be you got to combine those two. So, what two things multiply to 9, but add together gives you 6. And you have to make sure that this is the same number, because it's going to give you the perfect square. So it's going to be x plus 3 to the second. Minus 16 is equal to 0. I'm going to have to drag these down, because it seems like it's going to interfere. Okay, so back to this. Okay, so we have x plus 3 squared minus 16 is equal to 0. So you're going to add 16 to both sides. X plus 3 squared is going to equal 16. We square root both sides. Now remember, when you square root, it's going to give you a plus or minus on the other side. So square root of 16 is 4. So it's going to be plus or minus 4. And we're going to get two equations. So x plus 3 is equal to 4, or x plus 3 is equal to negative 4. Solve for both. So x is going to equal to 1, or x is going to equal to negative 7. Okay. Number 4. Alright, so everything's to the left side of this equation, so that's fine. This is already a coefficient of 1, so that's fine. Now, we gotta take this coefficient of x, we gotta half it and then square it. So, negative 12 divided by 2 squared. That's gonna be 6 squared, which is 36. So, we gotta add by 36 and subtract by 36. So x squared minus 12x plus 36 minus 36 plus 11 is equal to 0. So now, we gotta make that into a perfect square trinomial, and we got to combine those two. So, what two things multiply to 36, but when added together gives you negative 12? And that's negative 6 and negative 6. Remember, since this is doing it by since we're doing this, solving this by completing the square, this format is going to force it to be a perfect square. So x minus 6 squared. Negative 36 plus 11 is minus 25 is equal to 0. So let's solve for x. Add 25 to both sides. Square root both sides. And remember, when you guys square root, you're going to get positive and negative of that square root. Square root of 25 is 5. Going to get two equations. So we're going to get x minus 6 is equal to 5, or x minus 6 is equal to negative 5. Add 6 to both sides, and we are going to get x is equal to 11, or x is equal to 1. Okay. I need to do some cleaning up work because this is going to interfere. And I knew that would happen, but it's okay. I'm doing some cleanup work so that you guys can see the rest. Okay, not a problem. My Wi-Fi has been a little glitchy for the past couple of days. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so now we have 5, right? So again, set the whole equation equal to 0. So we're going to subtract 8 to both sides. So we got x squared minus 10x plus 34 is equal to 0. Okay, there's no coefficient for x squared, or it's 1, which is good. Now we gotta take the coefficient of x, half it, and then square it. So, negative 10. Half it, and then square it. So we get 5 squared, which is 25. So that means we need to add by 25 and subtract by 25 to the left-hand side. So x squared minus 10x plus 25 minus 25 plus 34 is equal to 0. Okay, so you guys make that a perfect square trinomial, and you guys add what I just circled. So what two things multiply to 25, but when you guys add it, gives you negative 10. And that is negative 5 and negative 5, which is perfect because that will give us a perfect square, or factor of a perfect square trinomial. X minus 5 squared. Negative 25 plus 34 is plus 9. Is equal to 0. I made a mistake too. Minus 8, that should have been... Sorry, that should have been plus 18. So since that was plus 18, that means this should have been 18. So it's negative 25 plus 18, which is minus 7. Sorry for that. Okay, so now we solve for x. So add 7 on both sides. Okay, square root both sides. So we can't square root 7, but we're still going to get plus or minus square root of 7. So now we get two equations. X minus 5 is equal to square root of 7, or x minus 5 is equal to negative square root of 7. Add 5 to both sides. And we're going to get x is equal to 5 minus square root of 7. And x is equal to 5. Sorry, this is plus square root of 7. This is 5 minus square root of 7. And that looks to be good. Okay, number 6. We gotta make it sure it's equal to 0, so we're gonna add 12x to both sides. So we're gonna get 6x squared plus 12x minus 48 is equal to 0. Now notice there's a coefficient from the x squared, so we need to divide everything by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1x squared, 12 divided by 6 is 2x, negative 48 divided by 6 is negative 8. Okay, so we take the middle term, you half it, and then square it. So 2 divided by 2 squared, that's 1 squared, which is 1. So x squared plus 2x, we add it now, and then we subtract it. So we need to factor the perfect square trinomial, and we need to combine these two. So what two things multiply to 1? Well, when you add it gives you 2. That's 1 and 1. So we're going to get x plus 1 squared minus 9 is equal to 0. Now we just simply solve. when you guys square root, you are going to get the plus and minus. So x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3. Now we have two equations. X plus 1 is equal to the square root of 3, or x plus 1, I always do that, negative square root of 3. Subtract 1 to both sides. X is equal to negative 1 plus square root of 3, or x is equal to negative 1 minus the square root of 3. Okay, very good. Now our last two. Okay, so 7. I like everything to be on the left-hand side, and I don't know why that should say A, that should say an X. So what we're going to do is subtract 8x from both sides, and we're going to add both sides by 6. 2x squared minus 8x plus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, we want this to be a coefficient of 1, so we're going to divide both sides by 2. X squared minus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. Now we need to half that coefficient of the x term and then square it. So negative 4, half of negative 4, and you square it. That's going to give you negative 2 squared, which is 4. So we're going to add 4 and then subtract 4. So x squared minus 4x plus 4 minus 4 plus 3 is equal to 0. Got to factor this perfect square trinomial, and then we're going to combine those two. So, two things that multiply to 4, but when added together it gives you negative 4, that's negative 2 and negative 2. So x minus 2 squared minus 1 is equal to 0. Solve for x, so add 1 to both sides, square root both sides. So then we are going to get x minus 2 is equal to, remember, plus or minus the square root of 1, which is 1. So we're going to get two equations, right? X minus 2 is equal to 1, or x minus 2 is equal to negative 1. Add 2 to both sides for both of them. And you guys should get x is equal to 3, or x is equal to 1. Ooh, just made it. Okay, last problem. Alright, here. Okay. Alright, so everything's on the left side. Great. The coefficient of this is 1. Great. So now you take this, you half it, and then you square it. So negative 12 divided by 2, and you square it. 6 squared, 36. So we need to add 36 to both sides, but then also subtract. So you need to factor this perfect square trinomial and then combine those two. Two things that multiply to 36, but when added together gives you negative 12. That is negative 6 and negative 6. So x minus 6 squared minus 13 is equal to 0. So now solve for x, so add 13 on both sides, square root both sides. Now remember, it's going to be plus or minus square root of 13, but unfortunately you can't simplify square root of 13, so it's just square root of 13. Now we solve. X minus 6 is equal to positive square root of 13, or x minus 6 is equal to negative square root of 13. Add 6 to both sides, and we're going to get x is equal to 6 plus the square root of 13, or x is equal to 6 minus the square root of 13. So hopefully this helps you guys with complete the square form, and good luck, okay? Peace.